Welcome to Aiken This Week. I'm Glenn Parker. Today our show is going to focus on our Aiken Public Safety Department. Joining us today are the city's Director of Public Safety, Charles Barranco, former Chief Carrol Busbee, and Lieutenant Phil Kestin. Chief, why don't you start us off, I guess, a little bit. Just tell us about the overall concept of public safety and how it's different from a regular fire department or a police department that we normally see.
Well, thank you, Glenn, for having us today. We're excited to brag a little bit about public safety. Public safety is really not a new concept. Grosse Pointe Shores, Michigan, in 1911 was the first public safety department in America, and so it's had many different iterations. Public safety typically is the sharing of resources and cross-training of personnel to provide a service to a community. We also throw in medical first responder training into that. So our public safety officers are policemen, firemen, and medical first responders. So that means they have to be fully trained as a police officer, fully trained as a firefighter, and then the medical part training. That's not to rise to the level of EMT, but basic first aid and use of an AED and oxygen. Okay. Some of the other shared resources that we have through our maintenance division, some of the maintenance personnel are also firemen. Some of the records personnel are also dispatchers. So it's really a concept that has grown and evolved in the environment of public safety.
All right. Now, public safety's been around Aiken for a while. When did it start?
Well, the first article I can find about public safety in Aiken was about 1959, but really it started, it's in 1970 officially, when they named Chief Busbee the first director of public safety.
Chief, you've seen a lot change since the 70s. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's changed over the years?
All right, we were trying to better ourselves back in the 50s. Aiken has always been a community of real concern as far as people. They were concerned, the people of Aiken have always supported the city of Aiken services. And back in the 50s, we were trying to better our fire rate here in the city of Aiken to return some revenue back to our citizens through lowering their fire insurance rates. And at that time, our city manager was Harding Hughes, who had come from North Carolina. And in North Carolina, there were a couple of departments up there that had gone to the public safety concept. And he brought up the issue before council, and council felt like it would be a good thing for us to consider. So in the 50s, we started training our police officers as firefighters to supplement our forces as far as the fire department was concerned. And this program went on for about 3 years. And then we started thinking not only about our personnel, but thinking about a facility that could be totally public safety as far as the facilities are concerned. So the department, along with the citizens, went out and obtained enough petitions to come to a vote for a bond issue for 3 major projects for the city of Aiken: storm drainage in downtown area, a recreation facility, a public works facility, and a public safety building. And all of this was done in the 60s, late 60s, and in 1975, that building became a real thing, along with the other issues that was on the bonds. And we moved into the building in 1975 when it was completed. And at that time, we were training both the policemen and the firefighters to do a dual role. We were sending our firefighters to the police academy and the policemen to the fire academy. And we worked on that for it took us a couple of more years to get all that training done. And then in 1979, we went totally consolidated, where we were all on 8-hour shifts, and all our people were totally cross-trained. And the premise is that if you throw a few basic facts at this problem, number one, fire stations and fire equipment is usually stationary in areas around a community. But our patrol cars are out there all the time covering the entire city. And if we have an emergency, who's going to be there first? The one that's the closest. So we wanted to make sure that the one was the closest was a public safety officer who could size up a situation and determine what was needed, call back to the station and the fire equipment responding and let them know what we had. So the people of Aiken supported it, and the people that worked their job really loved to do it. And the old adage is that we used to have 20 people that could do one thing and 10 that could do a different thing. Now we have 30 that can do it all. So that's been our goal, and I think the results of it has been just tremendous. And what made it work was the people that did the job and the citizens that supported it.
You made it seem very smooth and easy. I'm sure it wasn't that smooth at the time, though.
No, it was very difficult because the main thing you were up against was traditions.
Sure.
You know, those things are hard to deal with sometimes. People will not easily accept change. You know, so we had to overcome those.
Chief Busbee mentioned a city manager in North Carolina. You're working for a new city manager now who's been in Aiken for a month and a half, maybe 2 months, who wasn't familiar with public safety concept. How have you tried to educate Mr. Klem about what we do in Aiken?
Well, we have had several meetings about public safety, and he's amazed at how well it works here. One of the first things we did, he got to sit down with Chief Busbee and talk to him about those growing pains. But Mr. Klem's concerns were, you know, a major event, preparedness, and through working with him and showing him our resources and talking with other agencies around us, I think he has come to see that we are prepared for any situation. You know, we've dealt with assisted and train derailments, tornadoes, ice storms, tire fires. So we have that multitude of experience that's still on the force to be able to take care of those situations to continue to serve our citizens.
Now, I understand there are different types of public safety. What do we have in Aiken?
Well, it's Chief Busbee talked in. Originally, we were a very true public safety department that every public safety officer did all this multitude of things. One of the things that he did mention is that we were actually driver operators of the fire trucks at one time. And so through analyzing and trying to see where the dollars are going and serving our citizens, the iteration that we're at now is, of course, our public safety officers are still cross-trained, police and fire and medical first responder. But we do have some driver operators dedicated to getting the fire apparatus to the scene. And so the patrol officers or the public safety officers out on the street act as our firefighters. And we have people assigned to take care and maintenance the equipment and then respond the equipment and operate it at the fire scene.
Okay. Now, since you're a combined department, it probably takes sort of a unique individual to be a public safety officer. What do you look for in an officer?
Well, first of all, you have to be flexible. Chief Busbee also mentioned this. A traditional fireman or policeman ingrained in fire and police isn't always receptive to the public safety concept. And so we have been successful in hiring people right out of college, somebody that's getting new into the field, somebody that is really looking to maybe get into law enforcement, but this is an opportunity to get in, but they're also going to have to learn to be a fireman as well. And I'm an example of that. And I got into public safety in the early 90s, and with the intent of, my goal was to be a police officer, but fell in love with the fire side and saw how it does take that special person to become a public safety officer.
Well, and in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do a show where we're going to talk with some of your employees about hiring and training and recruitment and those kind of things. So we'll get a little bit more in depth into what they're looking for in a public safety officer. You've mentioned a couple of them, but so what are the benefits? I mean, last night you guys had to respond to a fire, I believe.
That's right. Benefits is serving the citizens. When I use the example of a broken water line, when the citizen calls dispatch and needs some assistance with a broken water line, not all the time is a police officer equipped to be able to handle that. But because of the education process through the fire service, that public safety officer can help them cut their water off or whatever it may be. An accident's another example. When we respond to an accident, a typical job of a police officer is to secure the scene and get traffic flowing. As with our fire training, we're able to make sure there's not any issues with the car that may become a fire hazard. Also with the medical first responder training, we can offer some first aid. Mm-hmm. So getting that person to the scene quickly to be able to assess the situation and pass that information on to others that can care for the person.
Okay. Now, obviously it's, not all great and perfect every time. What are some of the challenges in public safety?
Good point. We do have some challenges. I just talked about training. All this extra training is a benefit, but I believe it's a challenge as well, because a new person coming in to public safety as a public safety officer, it takes about a year to get them fully trained and out there on the road serving the citizens. So there's an upfront cost to that. And so that is one of the challenges. Another one of the challenges in training is the ongoing required training that we must keep our certifications through the police academy and fire academy, and even on the medical side. So that mandated training is a challenge to us at times.
Well, speaking of a challenge, recently City Council passed a height restriction, I guess, or limited, reduced the height restriction in downtown for the hotel that's coming into town. There's some concern that public safety is going to have a difficult time with that. How are you guys equipped, and is that going to be a challenge for public safety?
Well, there's buildings in Aiken that are already taller than what the expected height of this new building is. We train for that. The hospital is an example of that. We're familiar with the area. In those taller buildings, they build areas of refuge for occupants to be able to respond to. Then we're able to get them out if necessary. Along with the building codes, sprinkler systems and standpipe systems will assist us in keeping that safe.
Very good. Well, let's shift, and I apologize. I called you Lieutenant earlier. You're Captain Phil Kestin. Captain Kestin, tell us sort of what your primary role is with public safety and what you're going to talk to us a little bit about today.
Sure. Well, my title is Administrative Captain, so I'm over the Administrative Division. And the functions in the Administrative Division are Records Bureau, the Communications Center, the training function, the hiring practices, and one of the main components, one of my most important jobs is maintaining standards in the department. So I'm the Accreditation Manager, or the named Accreditation Manager of the department.
Okay, so public safety is an accredited agency. How long have we been accredited?
Yeah, we've been accredited since 1998. That was the first time we were accredited, so about 17 years. And we're accredited by CALEA, the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, which is a national organization, and that's their sole purpose, is to go around and accredit law enforcement agencies, dispatch centers, academies, things like that. But they have a full-time staff, very small full-time staff, but a full-time staff that assists agencies with maintaining their accreditation, documentation, answering questions about interpretation of standards and things of that nature.
Okay. Now in March, I think public safety received a pretty prestigious award. You were recognized as Accreditation with Excellence level. I think we were only one of two in South Carolina to receive that this year. What does that mean to the folks in Aiken?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. When the commissioners look at an agency, the way the process works is you have an on-site assessment on a regular interval, and the commissioners select someone who you're not familiar with from out of state. So you never know who's coming. We know the general period of time when they'll come, but we never know when they're going to show up, and we don't know who they are. So the commissioners will select someone from out of state, and they'll send you in for an on-site assessment. And when the assessors come on site and they perform that assessment, they're doing it according to brackets of accreditation. So the basic accreditation, basic law enforcement accreditation, they're looking at about 180 standards of compliance that you have to meet. We're actually advanced accreditations, about closer to 500 standards that we have to meet. So that's one of the criteria for being recognized accreditation with excellence, is that we're not involved in the basic program, we're involved in the advanced program. The other thing they look at is that it can't be your first accreditation. They want to make sure you have at least 2 prior accreditation achievements before you're even considered for accreditation with excellence. And then there's issues. Some agencies will be accredited as the commissioners come in or as the assessors come in and take a look at what you're doing, and they see you're having difficulty achieving compliance with a certain standard. And they'll say, we'll accredit you in a conditional manner for the next 6 months. We're going to come back in 6 months and see how you're doing towards meeting this. So you can't have any of those issues hanging out there to be accredited with excellence. So it's really a super clean accreditation process. They have to come in and see that everything went well when they're assessing you on the on-site. You have to have a good review, a good report from the assessors who showed up and looked at you. And you have to use what they call the new gold standard of assessment. So the assessors are not coming in there simply looking at your files and paper documentation. They spend most of their time with your citizens and with your employees and with your HR department and the people that the department has contact with. And the way they refer to it is we're looking at processes and outcomes. So what types of processes did you have to create, and what were the outcomes of these processes that you created? Did it turn out good? Did it turn out bad? If it turned out bad, how did you go back to the drawing board and recreate it or adjust that process to make it better?
Okay. Well, now I guess now that the bar's been set,
Yeah.
that's it. That's where we want to remain from this point forward.
I would hope so. I would hope so. You never know what can happen over time. There's a lot of financial commitments that are required to maintain accreditation. So there's budgetary requirements, things like evidence storage, things like education reimbursement. Those are all things that the commission looks at. And if there are budgetary issues where we're not able to maintain some of those requirements, there's a possibility that maybe we wouldn't be accredited with excellence. But of course, that'll be the goal, is to always achieve accreditation with excellence.
I don't think you mentioned this. How often do they come back and look at us?
Yeah, we're required to maintain compliance with all the standards over the entire period, but right now they come every 3 years, sometime in a 3-year period. And there's a lot of talk at the Accreditation Commission that they're going to change that to coming every 4 years, which you think, oh, that might be a little easier to maintain. But if they go to that process, what they're going to do is look at 25% of your standards every year from a remote location, and then simply show up every 4th year and do an on-site again where they talk to the people. So you never know which 25% of the standards they're going to look at from off-site, and you never know, who they're going to talk to when they come here. So the goal is always to maintain compliance with 100% of the standards.
So instead of ramping it up 6 months before they get here,
Yes.
you're going to have to maintain throughout.
Absolutely.
Be constant. That's
Absolutely.
great. What are some of the changes that the department itself had to make over the years to maintain your accreditation and now reach this new level?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Accreditation addresses all aspects of law enforcement operations. So we've seen changes in little changes in a lot of the operations that we do. So one example is evidence storage. When they came in initially in 1998, officers would drop evidence into an old decommissioned mailbox, and it would be in a location at the end of their tour of duty in this mailbox in a secure part of the building. Or an evidence custodian would come in the next morning. Well, not everything fits in a mailbox. Sometimes you might recover a stolen bicycle, or you might recover a lawnmower or something like that. And the procedures we were using is we would put it in what we thought was a secure area of the building, allow the evidence technician to come in the morning and lock it up for us. And that was something that the commissioner said, hey, no, that's not good enough. You need a place by the end of the tour of duty where that person's property is properly secured, it's tagged, and in case they come up, we know that the entire time it's been in the possession of the department, it's been in a safe location. So we had to purchase land, purchase fencing. We purchased a special set of lockers to be dropping evidence for officers at the end of a tour of duty. So that's just one example. There's constant changes to the process of accreditation. Some of the more recent changes or demands they put on the departments is that we need policy on military deployment. So law enforcement officers and military are symbiotic. They work together. It attracts the same type of people. We have several people who are on the reserves or the National Guard, and they get deployed. Well, the challenges that creates if you have an officer who's been deployed for 12 months or 14 months or 16 months. So there's policy now that they've had us create about how you out-process a person going to deployment, how you make sure that they don't have any psychological trauma when they return, that you process them back in through psychological means, and making sure that they're being provided with the help that they might need to come back up to speed. They'll make sure that we have contact with them and their families while they're deployed, so they know what's going on in the department. They're not coming back cold like a new employee. So there's just a lot of changes that occur, and it never stops, and we don't expect it to ever stop.
We're going to be talking with Jake Mahoney in an upcoming show, and I believe he's an example of just what you were speaking of.
Absolutely.
As an accredited agency, what does that offer our citizens and our employees? I mean, okay, you're accredited. What does that do for me as an Aiken resident?
Well, one thing it does is accreditation is not a requirement in law enforcement. Like a hospital or a school where you probably wouldn't go to one of those locations that's not accredited. Accreditation is a voluntary commitment from a police department to put an additional set of standards on yourself. So you're voluntarily saying we're going to meet these additional standards. And it's not common. It's only about 4% of law enforcement in the United States is accredited by CALEA. So of the 17 or 18,000 agencies, there's only about 600 in the whole country who are accredited. And the reason that we do that is because we want to be the best. We want to be the most professional organization we can be. And we want that guideline or that framework that accreditation provides you as you're trying to figure out your process or your operational guidelines. We know if we meet a set of national standards that we're doing better than if we don't have that guideline or that framework to work off of. And we don't always get everything right. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. But we know we have a process in place to address that operational issue, and we know we have a process in place to make it better if things don't work out like they're supposed to. So that's what it is. It's a commitment to the citizens. There is some financial benefit to it. Agencies like Municipal Association, who helps do some of our insurance, there's a multiplier. They ask us, are you an accredited agency? And they reduce the multiplier, which is how they calculate what your insurance costs. So there is some financial benefit to it. The employees who work for the city and who work for public safety, there's a listing or a policy or a guideline on most personnel practices. So promotions, disciplinary action, terminations, hiring, recruitment, all that's covered in a policy and is performed in a uniform manner over the entire time we do those activities year to year. So if an employee's trying to figure out when am I eligible for employment, or oh, I made a mistake and I know I'm going to have disciplinary action, how was that handled? All that is listed in the booklet form. It's in the policy manual. It's in the employee handbook. It's somewhere where they can go look it up. So it's just a very consistent professional environment to work in.
Good, very good. Chief, we got a little bit of time left. Let me ask you about mutual aid agreements. You guys work closely with the Sheriff's Department locally, sure. City of North Augusta, that's obvious, but sitting in city council meetings, there's been some mutual aid agreements signed with different agencies. What's that all about, and who do you have those with, some of the ones?
Well, typically what we have found, and we've, again, this has been a process too. We used to have mutual aid agreements with counties all over the state, but now we have limited it to just the counties that border Aiken County, and then within Aiken County. So if they need assistance, let's say in Horry County for a hurricane or something, Horry County would send it out to Aiken County, and then Aiken County would ask us, and we would still be covered under those guidelines. So we do have a multitude of mutual aid agreements, so, but we have consolidated those in recent years to be able to have a manageable amount and really have a confined area to where we would respond unless it was some kind of catastrophic event.
And tell us a little bit about the local working relationship with Sheriff Hunt and his group.
Sure. Well, as you know, I worked at the Sheriff's Office for a short period of time. Sheriff Hunt worked for Aiken Public Safety for a time, and so the relationship is wonderful. Chief Busbee raised us all, truthfully, and that spirit of cooperative serving of the citizens is extended every day. The guys on the street feel it, the administrators feel it, and so really the bottom line is that cooperative effort should be there to better serve our citizens.
Okay. Chief Busbee, when you retired as the public safety director, I guess you got tired of fishing, you came back to the city a little bit, so you've been around and sort of watched Public Safety Department. You've stayed sort of close to them. What do you see going on with public safety today? What's your thoughts on it?
I see a very well-run professional organization that I am extremely proud to have been a part of and still a part of. You don't retire from public safety. You just go do something else, but you're always with it. It's always here in your heart.
Sure.
And public safety is a family, a very tight family. These men and women out there on the street are asked to perform so many tasks. And they're also put in the danger zone on a run basis. And we've lost some folks in doing their job. And it's those were family members. And their family is part of the public safety family. So I see us being a group of people that love to do their job and loves the citizens that they do it for. And in return, we've seen the citizens come to us and appreciate what happens, you know. And then I look at public safety as being very advantageous for the whole city, because the city is also a family. You know, when Public Works needs some guys to help them keep the traffic off of them so they can get a hole dug or a tree cleared, who's there doing it? Then when we get in trouble and we need something from them, it's an automatic response. So I'm very proud of where we are. I'm proud of our community, where it's at. We obtained some wonderful goals. You were talking about accreditation earlier. And you know, we received the first Class 2 fire rating in the state of South Carolina for our fire efforts, you know. So if I had to say the best about it, I would say thank God for letting me be a part of it. It's good.
It is good. It is good. Chief Barranco, why don't you be a visionary for a minute, and what do you see as the future of public safety for Aiken? I know you're looking at some buildings and some different things.
Sure. Well, we must continue to grow with the city, first of all. You know, we launched Aiken Safe Communities several years ago, and that continues to grow. At first, it was focused on the violent offenders, and now we've moved on to a cooperative effort with the schools and Aiken Safe Schools. We have plans to move forward with businesses, safe businesses. Our next focus on the criminal side of it is going to be with our new domestic violence law, and how we can sort of change the mindset of how we handle domestic violence, especially with intimate partners. So that's coming up. What's really coming fast is all the technology to keep up with. We're in the process of looking at new software, and maybe even upgrades in the dispatch center, radios, and the big hot topic lately is body cams, and how we implement that and to best serve the citizens. But I would say the most important thing that we do over the next years are continue to build bridges with our community to better serve them. We can't do this by ourselves. We're public servants, and our job is to keep people safe. But if we don't have that relationship and know what the needs of the community are, we're not able to do that by ourselves. And so having their input on our policies and our practices that we have currently and how we can make that better is really, I think, how we get to the future with our community.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. This has been enlightening for me, educational for me. Chief Busbee, I'm glad you came off the lake and could join us today.
I left the fish alone this morning, but not this afternoon.
Thank you for that. If you have a question, if you would like to see a topic on the show, send us an email to aikenthisweek@cityofaikenSC.gov, cityofaikenSC.gov. See you next week.